What choice affects everything from your product uniqueness to your profit margins, and making the right decision can save you thousands of dollars and months of your timeline development while choosing between a contract manufacturer or a private label manufacturer. In this video, we will check the pros and cons of both types of manufacturers and a checklist of questions that you need to ask your manufacturer depending on who you are working with. To make this video a little bit less course giving, I will share facts, pros and cons for each type of manufacturer, and I will let you guess if we are talking about a private label manufacturer or a contract manufacturer. And at the end, I will give you the definitions and why you should choose one or maybe the other. You're in? Okay, let's go. Let's start with all the pros. The first one is a good one. What if I'm a manufacturer with a unique product offering? That means that you that want to develop a cosmetic, you will be able to have a formula that is exclusive to your brand. You can create something that is really truly unique and innovative, and that allows for specific benefits and claims. Of course, what is nice is that it can help you to differentiate from competitors. Also, you will be able to completely control the ingredient selection. Yes, here we are talking about a contract manufacturer. Now, what if I'm a manufacturer that can offer my service at the lower end of the cost range, meaning no R&D fees, typically, a lower MOQ for minimum order quantity, sometimes as low as 50 to 300 units, predictable unit costs. What is the benefit for you? Well, less capital tied up in the development, and I repeat, samples that are often available at a minimal cost. Yes, here usually we'll talk about private label manufacturers. Indeed, the PLM have usually a list of pre-developed formulation. That means lower cost on your end. Okay, for this one, let's take it the other way. What type of manufacturer would you choose in order to lower the risk of failing? Meaning the formula is already developed and proven. There is already an established stability and shelf life. So if all of this is already predetermined, that means that you can already know the manufacturing costs. There should be no surprise. So what goes with it is a predictable timeline. And what's the benefits for you is that it will be easier to calculate the profit margins. So if you want all these benefits, you will choose a private label manufacturer. Next, what if you want to have scaling flexibility? Meaning you have already a formula, but you want your formula to grow as your business grows. Flexibility scaling means you also want the possibility to, for example, at some point, choose another manufacturer and transfer your future order somewhere else. Flexibility also, you want to have the possibility to make some improvements of your formula over time. In this case, for example, you will have full control over the sourcing of the ingredients. So in this case, you will have like a prototype formulation, right? And you want to be able to adapt it along the process. For that, most likely you will need to work with a contract manufacturer. Okay, let's say that this manufacturing phase is something that is really stressing you for some reason. And the only thing that you want is reduce the complexity of this phase. Meaning, you want a manufacturer that has already established manufacturing processes. You want predetermined specifications. You just want to simplify the decision making on your end because it's not your thing and maybe you don't have the technical knowledge and you are not interested in it. So if you don't want to worry too much about this phase, I will advise you to work with a private label manufacturer. It seems to be the simplest way. Okay, let's say now that your product is your baby. You have worked so hard to find what is, to your eyes, the perfect formulation that will give innovative and unique benefits to your future customers. That means that your product has intellectual property value, meaning you own the formula, not just because it's on your shelf at home, but you have intellectual property rights on it. This formula can become a valuable business asset. There is potential for patenting its unique aspects, and that's perfect to create a barrier for copycats. Well, in this specific case, you will work with a contract manufacturer. You will be able to give them your specific formulation and they will produce it for you, just as it is written on your documents. By the way, if your formula has IP value, you must clarify ownership of your formula in writing in a contract setting. Okay, last one. What if all you think about is launching your product as soon as possible? You want the minimum lead time. That means that you really want to fast track the production and have it launched in the next month or 3 months versus 6 to 12 months. What manufacturer will you choose? You will choose the private label manufacturer because in this case, as we have seen earlier, formulas are already developed and tested, stability testing are already completed, regulatory compliance is already verified, and the packaging compatibility is confirmed. So now that we have seen all the pros, let's talk a little bit about the cons because there are some. For the contract manufacturers, well, the cons are on the budget end because it's more pricey than the private label manufacturers, because you have a prototype of a formula that needs to be developed, so there will be some R&D fees, and these fees are typically between $3,000 to $50,000 1,000 euros per product. So of course you will have multiple rounds of samples and testing. Contract manufacturer means also longer time for all the reasons that I just mentioned. The development usually takes between 5 to 12 months, and we understand now why. You will need to be involved way more than if you are working with a private label manufacturer. And finally, of course, what is a benefit for some people can be also a con regarding the higher MOX. Some companies may want a lot of units, between 100 to 5,000 or more units of their product. But for a startup, that means a large initial investment, also more inventory risk, because when you have your finished products, where are you going to put them? That's something you have to think about. So you will have to also to consider the storage management of your project. Now the cons for the private label, because yeah, there are some also. When you are developing a cosmetic product, what you want is to have a unique product. You don't want your product to be the same as all the products that are already on the shelf, right? Because why the consumer will buy yours? So you want uniqueness. You want something that is innovative, make the difference. If you work with a private label manufacturer, that means that all your competitors will have access to the same formula. It's harder to build an authentic story around your product when the majority of the formula is the same as your competitor. It may limit the technical marketing claims of your product, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible to stand out. That means that you need to heavily rely on your branding to make the difference. You may have to put your uniqueness in your branding story. As I mentioned, working with a manufacturer that have a lower MOC means that the cost per unit will be higher. That means that on the long term, you may have lower profit margins. Okay, with all the information, I will give you now the concise definition for the PLM and the contract manufacturer. But surprise, there is a middle ground between the contract manufacturer and the private label. The semi-custom private label. So, the contract manufacturing, this is when you bring your custom formula to a manufacturer who produces exclusively for you. You want the formula and it is made specifically for your brand. Think of it as a chef that cook for you, but with your ingredients. Now, private labeling. This is when you select a pre-formulating product from a manufacturer existing catalog and you put your brand on it. So the same formula may be sold multiple brands with different packaging and labels. It's more like choosing a dish on the restaurant menu, but having served on your own plate that you brought from home. There is another type of manufacturer, the semi-custom private label. Those manufacturers have a formulation, a base formulation, but it is possible to tweak it based on what you need. You can request some modification, for example, the fragrance, the color, and small ingredient adjustments. And this is becoming increasingly popular within the new brands. Now that you have chosen between a contract manufacturer, a PLM, or maybe a semi-custom private label, you will need to ask specific questions to make sure to have all the info. For contract manufacturers, so what is the development process and timeline? What are the costs for the development? Will you own the formula exclusively? What testing are including in the development? What are the MOCs and the repeat orders possible? And if maybe they can help you with the regulatory compliance. Now, for private labels, you can ask if you can see the documentation for the formulation, because in the formulation, there may be an ingredient that you already know will not work with your specific active ingredient, for example. You can ask what type of modification can be made. You can also ask if they can provide you samplings before ordering. And of course, for both type of manufacturer, ask for lead times, payment terms, and quality control procedures. Some practical tips now. Remember, if you're a startup and that you want to first work with a private label manufacturer because it's easier, that doesn't mean that later with your hero product, you cannot shift to a contract manufacturer in order to increase your profit margins, for example. And ask around you if you have a community of startups that are developing their cosmetic products. Ask around what type of manufacturer they are working with, if they had any issues or else. That may save you some time and money. Either you want to work with a PLM or a contract manufacturer to develop a formula, they will probably have the 10 most ingredients that are found in formulations. If you don't know them, watch this video.